Corbolic V2. This is a super safe and effective natural anabolic. Not only is this product going to help you increase protein synthesis, which basically means muscle recovery and growth, it also may inhibit myostatin, which is a protein in your body that is known to inhibit muscle growth. This is a complete natural anabolic that works through multiple different pathways, has multiple trademarked ingredients. If you are a natural athlete looking for that edge, Corbolic V2 is what you need. Get yourself some.
All right, guys. Well, this is an emergency session of the Pro Physique Code.
I like that emergency session.
Well, I honestly have been, I'm sure as you have, just almost overwhelmed with messages, questions, DMs, text messages from current, former, and potentially future clients who are just really, I want to say interested or very curious about the new division.
Yeah, and we're recording this right now on Wednesday, like 4, and this announcement, it was less than 24 hours ago, but yeah, I've been the same way. I've gotten a lot of people very interested in this new announcement.
Yeah, I was up till about 1:30 last night because by the time I got through all my messages that I was getting, I still had to answer emails. I did a bunch of stories about the topic. I don't think I was prepared for how much of an impact this would have right out of the gate.
I don't think I was either. And what's interesting is, I don't know if I ever told you this, Paul, but I heard somebody told me about a month ago, they had heard that they're like a rumor that this was going to be a division, right? And I personally was kind of thinking, well, if it was going to happen in 2025, they would have announced it way far in advance. So I kind of brushed it under the rug. And then when I saw that announcement yesterday and that video that Tyler posted, I was like, whoa.
I
So
tell you what, it makes sense to wait until the last national show happens. Because I can only imagine the amount of questions he would have got backstage about, hey, do you think I'll fit the new division? Like, right? Like he's probably planning ahead.
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a great point.
Because that's all that people are asking me. Like a lot of my clients are sending me pictures when they're like 10 weeks out. Do you think this is the criteria? And I'm like, man, we're going to go down a rabbit hole here. So I'm actually excited to see who fits this criteria very well. They've made a very bold statement of what it was. I think it was Ashley Kaltwasser from, I don't know what year that was, 2013,
Oh
2012.
gosh, I think it was, gosh, I think that picture that they used that they showed of Ashley was actually 2015, I want to say.
Okay.
Something
Well,
around that time
yeah,
period.
that might have been her last victory, or it might have been the first year that she lost, because she won 4 in a row and then lost, took a year off, and then came back and got fourth. Man, my history is a little hazy. But
Something like that.
let's go over the rules, which are just right there on the website for conditioning, symmetry, balance, presentation, and muscularity. Do you have them in front of you? You want to read them off?
Yeah, let me pull them up. So these come directly from Tyler Manion. So I guess we didn't like specifically say it, but yesterday Tyler Manion did put out a full video on his Instagram about the announcement of this new division, and he specifically stated the criteria, which is, so we'll start with the criteria for the physique. So less muscle, less conditioning than Bikini, small amount of muscle to create a feminine shape, upper and lower body balance, no separation anywhere on the physique, no round capped delts, no etched in midsections. And then the one that kind of like surprised me the most was full glutes, but they do not want a visible tie-in. So no tie-in.
No visible tie-in, but he did say they should be firm when walking, so full.
Yes, and dense. And then the other part of it is the suit, because that's in the posing. So those are the other two aspects that are going to be very different. So we'll start with suits. So they do not want any bling on suits. So I take that as absolutely no like crystals on the suit. Now I do need to get clarification because I'm not sure about this. I don't know what that means for like connectors, like if you can do the crystal connectors, but they don't want bling on your suits. And they also want moderate coverage in the back. So For normal, like standard bikini now, generally most athletes are wearing the pro cut or micro cut, but for this division, they want moderate cut. And then posing wise, it's going to be front and back poses only. There will be a walk to the back if you are in an overall like lineup. And then they are actually implementing the old stallion pose for the front pose. So it's not going to be the traditional like bikini front pose. It's going to be the old stallion pose is what they're going to have girls do.
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. I know, I think there, we can speculate. All of this is speculation, but I think bikini is quite expensive, right, to compete in. And I think suits that girls are wearing are in excess, even entry level ones are in excess of $500. So this is going to eliminate that entry barrier where competitors are like, well, I don't want to spend $500 on a suit. Okay, so maybe you can get away with spending $30, $40 on a suit. And it's going to be much more focused on the competitor's physique than the $1,000 suit that she's wearing. So I think
Yeah.
that helps. I also, they made it very clear about the allotted time on stage. So I think they're thinking of from the perspective of people going to shows. They don't want to be dragging this out like a, Bikini Pro used to do. They don't do it so much anymore. Now they just kind of keep their routines shorter. So you're talking about the shows being of a short length, walk to the box, you have 10 seconds, no T walking. And then, comparisons. And I mean, I have very vivid memories of the first bikini show I went to in 2009 in Orlando. I actually have pictures of it. Um, and, the stallion pose, with the hip back, you're pushing one hip away, so competitors that have like a wider waist can hide it that way. They can use the hair to hide. No hard cores, right? No like etched in abs, etched in shoulders. Um, Obviously, they don't want to see any hamstrings or glute separation. So, yeah, I mean, you just described bikini until 2018, 2019, really?
Yeah, it's basically, I feel like it's just history repeating itself. So if you look at all the top level bikini competitors in, the 2015 era, that's basically what, like, in my opinion, kind of what they're wanting to see for this. Something else though that is worth mentioning that I didn't just mention with the criteria. So something that is very interesting, and I'm glad they did this. I think they probably needed to do this to just clear up any confusion. So if you choose to do this division at a show, so it is going to take place at all NPC shows in 2025. However, if you choose to enter this division, you can't cross over and do like normal bikini or cross over into another division at the same
Yeah.
show. So they are regulating that. So if you do potentially do this division at a show, like you can just do this division. You can still do like novice in the different like divisions there, but you can't cross over into like regular bikini or wellness or figure.
Yeah, and I'll be curious because I did have it, and this is great. We're going to get feedback right from the source, from the competitors, because that's what this is going to impact. I literally had a competitor say, "Hey, coach, can I do this category at a show when I'm like 8 weeks out from my bikini show?" And I was like, "We'll see. I don't see why not. You're going to have to get your NPC card anyway. The suit's not going to cost you anything extra, and so you're going to have to pay for hair and makeup. But if you can do that on your own, you could literally do this division, see if you fit the criteria." On your way to getting, to a national like level conditioning and muscularity for the bikini division. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I agree. I did get that question too from one of my athletes, and she was like, "Well, what if, like, if I'm, in my off season or I'm like 10 pounds above my normal stage weight, like, would I just be able to jump into a show and do this division?" So, like, it brings up a great point. But I know, like, you and I were talking before we started this podcast, we've been both kind of, we've both been getting messages from people who have maybe like they competed back 5+ years ago in bikini, and they haven't competed in 4 or 5 years, and some of those same people are kind of starting to reach back out now that they've heard of this division, thinking, okay, maybe I want to get my feet wet and get back up on stage again.
I couldn't agree more. I've had messages from bikini pros that are retired, girls that are, they did just announce there was going to put a lot more emphasis on this natural bikini. And so we want to be very clear. the standard for bikini is no different if you're a natural, if you're enhanced, if you're going to nationals. The bikini standard is set right now, right? We know who our champion is in Laura Lee. She's won all the major shows this year. Arnold, that's the standard. So even if you're competing in natural bikini, you're going to be compared to that standard. Now, you might have less muscle, but most people have less muscle than Laura Lee. So it's not to confuse between the two divisions. So I think there's still going to be a very strong contention of people that are doing pro bikini in the natural space, and NPC bikini in the natural space. So for me, the timing is odd. I guess they waited until after nationals was over to announce this because they didn't want to confuse things at nationals or get a lot of questions there. But they really wanted to make sure that this was a clear distinction between bikini and fit model. So let me share my screen, Lexie, and we'll talk about. You'll have to let me know how this works because we don't usually do this. Share screen options. Okay. Share. And now I'm going to share my, so hopefully you can see that.
Perfect.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. So yeah, so the people who are listening, if you're obviously listening on like Apple or Spotify, you can't see this. So we are on YouTube. So go there if you want to see what we're referring to right now.
Yeah. So are you seeing Ashley K here in the picture?
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So that is the picture that is literally posted on NPC News Online. But I wanted to discuss a few other things that I thought were relevant because what I do see here that's defined in the rules, her core looks a little hard for me, right? And I will say Ashley is known for her really tight midsection. So the physique that I thought of when they mentioned this was this one right here. Courtney King in 2016 when she won the Olympia. Courtney is a Florida girl. We were, acquaintances at that time. I don't see her. She actually still is in Florida now that I think about it. She's still, down there with Chris. But this physique, as you see, if you look at her shoulders, they're not capped. They are round. Her core is nice and defined, but it's not hard. Her quads, hamstrings, and glutes have muscularity, but there's no hard lines. There's soft lines throughout. And she's obviously gorgeous and very glamorous and very balanced, right? You would look at her quads and glutes and, and everything's kind of balanced. So yeah, I just think that this is what the division is going to be all about. And you'll see in her back pose, when she's walking there, there's nothing moving, but there's also no tie-ins. We don't have these hard separation in the lower body, like right here. Like see this angle pose that she's doing. So I think that to me is the kind of the definition of this division. I'll show one more, and this is Lauren Dannemiller, who actually won NPC Nationals. Oh, the screen kind of messed up. There's the pictures I wanted to show of her there. The year she won the overall at the Florida Grand Prix, and then she got third at Junior USA's. Like if you see this physique, great shape, great balance. There she was at Junior Nationals that year. And then she actually went on right here at the top picture, 2017, she won the overall at Nationals. The reason that was significant, that was 276 bikini competitors that year, Lexie.
That's funny because I think that was the first year like I did start paying attention to like competitors and like just following them because I do remember this year when she won. I remember I don't think I knew you at the time, but I remember watching and when she won.
Yeah, it was obviously a crazy weekend. I had 3 competitors turn pro that weekend. I had 2 girls in the overall at nationals, and they were both in center. So it was pretty wild. Cassie Malone held center in the overall for a moment. They moved her in and moved her out, and there was another competitor in there too. So it was very like we didn't know what was going to happen. But 276 girls, and there was multiple classes with more than 40 per class. And I think one with 50. So just the raw numbers, the sheer numbers, that just makes you think, okay, Courtney King is the Olympia champion in 2016, 2017. Girls are like, let's go, let's do this thing. And then I showed a graphic on my story today. There's been a pretty steady decline in bikini. From this year, there was about 1,300 girls that hit the national shows, Junior USA's, Junior Nationals, Universe USA's, North Americans, and Nationals. Those are the 6 national shows, 1,300 in bikini. This year, 740. So granted, some of those girls may have gone to wellness or figure or something like that. So I haven't done the math on all the females, but that's a 40 something, 42% decline in competitors. And so you think maybe they're paying attention, like, okay, maybe if we kind of brought this look back and offered pro cards and made it glamorous, it might get attention.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's been a good amount of, there's some people that have expressed their opinion about this new division in a negative way. There are some people that are very happy about it. Personally, I think it's a great idea. And I think that this year we've talked on all of our, well, not all of our podcast episodes, but we've talked a lot about the declining numbers and we've given our own kind of theories as to why that is. And I think it comes down to two big things. I think one, it comes down to the finance aspect, right? Just how expensive it can be. And we talked about the suit just a second ago. That's a big part of it. And then two, just the look, I think for some girls just seems very far fetched. So it almost seems like the NPC is specifically listening to those two things, and they made a division that eliminates those two variables and issues that have maybe been an issue and been part of why the numbers have been declining.
Yeah, and I think, we can point to the economy, we can point to other changes, but I will say in the last 2 years, I've had a lot of competitors explain to me that they don't want to do the drugs, or they're doing the drugs to build the muscle to fit the current criteria, but they don't love it, right? It's they're not excited about it. And if anyone wants to ask, Lauren Dannemiller was a lifetime natural athlete when she won the overall at nationals. Um, and so obviously I think that's attractive for young competitors coming into this sport. So it's very interesting for me. And I want to add one more thing, because Tyler did make a follow-up post in his story, and I don't know that everybody saw this. So I'll just read this out loud and then I'll get your reaction. The new division's logic is very simple. Even though people inside the industry know the top bikini competitors aren't overly big and muscular, I guess I can stop sharing this. They are apprehensive to get on stage looking at pictures and videos. Attracting more people into the industry will only help us attract more mainstream sponsors. This is the only way the IFBB Pro League will continue to grow. I remember when everyone did not like the addition of men's physique and bikini. Today, they are amongst the most popular and celebrated divisions. This new division will require time, effort, and work, just as the original division 10 to 15 years ago. And I have very specific memories when they announced men's physique and bikini, and they were like, bodybuilders were like, I don't want to see guys in shorts, and I don't want to see a girl in a off the rack suit that looks like she should be at the beach. And to be fair, I was probably one of those people, because I was a bodybuilder. My first show, I did bodybuilding because that's all there was. My first couple shows, in fact. So, but I will say this, while I was a skeptic, obviously it wasn't up to me. I don't own the NPC and the IFBB. So you either get on board or you vote with your feet and you get lost. I will say now, understanding that just how much that changed the landscape of the bodybuilding world, how much more inclusive it became, I think it was a genius move. And I think this is going to land in a similar way.
I 100% agree. I saw that Becky Clausen posted something very similar in her story too, about how when bikini was first introduced, everybody had the same reaction, like, oh, that's silly. But now look at it. And honestly, I mean, the NPC, IPB, it's a business, right? Like, why I think it's a very smart move on their end, because I think it's going to bring about a lot of new faces to the sport too. Because I do feel like, and I know, especially with some of the athletes that I work with who come to me maybe as lifestyle clients, and then they're almost a little apprehensive to tell me, like, I would love to get on stage, but they're almost worried that, like, I don't know if I have what it takes. I don't know if I could match that criteria. So I think there's a lot of those women right now who kind of in the back of their mind, they've wanted to compete, but they've been a little apprehensive due to the fact of like what they feel like the criteria demands. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more people coming to this sport, and hey, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting once people start hitting the stage, because you do get the glamour of the bikini division. You're going to wear heels. You're going to wear a bikini that's not necessarily stoned as glitzy, but you're still going to see girls doing their hair and makeup. They're still going to have a great tan. They're still going to have great body composition. And I think once those pictures and images start coming out and it gets shared, it's going to start to build some momentum, because that's how the bikini division started. Very small. It was mostly girls that were doing figure that were like, well, let me try bikini out. So I think what's going to happen is, as soon as those first people try this sport out, and I think about the classic physique division. That wasn't necessarily highly regarded right away, but then you had a superstar emerge who became the most probably popular bodybuilder on the planet out of that division, who didn't quite fit the criteria for open bodybuilding. He fits the criteria for this perfectly. He becomes the most popular bodybuilder on the planet. This division could do the same thing. There could be a person who's an influencer who competes in a different organization or has never competed before, but it just fits them. And then that's all it takes. Imagine a girl with a couple million followers decides to do this and starts tagging, what that would do.
Right, right. And I'm curious too, like I want to get your take on this, Paul, because I've gotten this question a lot today about how I feel like this will impact like the current pool of competitors, like in the bikini criteria or in the bikini division now. And like, do I foresee the current bikini competitors, like a lot of them going down to this division? So I'm curious to kind of get your thoughts on that because I mean, with the criteria of the fit model division, it sounds like it's obviously a lot less muscle than regular bikini division. So I feel like, I mean, a lot of competitors now who are excelling at like national shows, winning overalls at regional shows, like I almost feel like those girls would have to lose muscle to fit this criteria. And I don't think a lot of girls would want to have to do that. So I'm curious to get your take on how you think, or if you think it's going to impact a lot of the current competitors right now.
Yeah, I mean, the first and foremost thing is understanding that in the IFBB, if you earn a pro card, doesn't matter what division you earn it in, you can compete across any other division. So not a lot of people know that. They think like, oh, I got my pro card in bikini, I can only do bikini. No, you can as a pro compete in any division. You might get laughed off stage. I remember when men's physique came out, I remember an open bodybuilder doing men's physique because there was no weight limits, and he looked ridiculous. He was huge, compared to like but he wanted to try it
Yeah.
out. He was a friend of mine here in Tampa. So like, yeah, I think as soon as they have their first pro show, you're going to have a lot of girls. And the cool thing is nowadays there's so much transparency with the judges. You know, Tyler and Sandy and and Bill, and we've got David Herskovitz here in Florida, Tim Gardner here in Florida, Serge here in Florida, all amazing. You've got Mo in the Carolina region. They give you the feedback. So, Tyler even makes videos. So you can imagine when that first show happens, this is why this person won. This is what happened in second place. He's been very transparent with that. And I think that'll help the division grow quicker than previous, because it used to be, when I first got into coaching 2015, 2014, there wasn't a lot of, it was a lot of like, oh, this is what this judge likes, this is what this judge likes. You almost had to have different strategies for different regions of the country. They've eliminated that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I love the transparency and like the judging feedback because honestly, I want to say, didn't Tyler just like he started these recap videos for pro shows? Was it like the beginning of this year or was it a year ago? It was pretty recent.
Yeah, I want to say it was last year, end of the year, but I could be wrong. It could have been this year, but
Okay.
this year, I think his criteria was he did a recap video for all the shows where he was a head judge, like he was there in person.
That's
Um,
that's
yeah,
right. I
because I know he did a couple where I was at with like Lana. He talked about her at the Ben Weider when she won. He talked about her at Texas Pro when she was in the top 4 call out. So like, I know when he's at the show, I don't think he's doing it for shows he's not at.
Okay, that would make sense for sure. That would make sense for sure. Yeah, but no, I'm really excited for this. I think I don't see any bad coming from it. Like I said, I feel like it's just going to bring about more people to the sport. It's going to grow the sport. And, like you and I discussed, we've already had people who have been reaching out to us who, maybe competed 5, 6 years ago when bikini was the fit model criteria and was that look. And people are expressing, like, maybe I want to get on stage again. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, I think, for competitors that have felt like they previously had gone through the spectrum of competing, getting their pro card, going to the Olympia, maybe felt like they didn't want to do what's going on in the sport. And not to knock those athletes, because they are doing what's required to fit the criteria. But, we've talked about the changes in those top pros where we're hearing the voices changing. We're seeing the masculinity of the faces. We're seeing the aging that potentially is going to turn some people away from the sport. Because again, if that's your, if you're not a, if you're not going to the shows and you're not seeing these people in person, if that's what you think you need to look like, because to be fair, at my first show, you know what I thought I had to look like?
Oh boy,
Jay
what?
Cutler and Ronnie Coleman. I had never been to a show. It wasn't until I went to a show and saw all the people on stage that I was like, what the heck? I can do this. In my
Right.
mind, everyone looked like Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler and Flex Wheeler and those guys. And I think probably from the perspective of people on Instagram, they're seeing highlight reels of, I mean, to be fair, probably the greatest advancement in the sport right now is these, the videos, the quality of the videos from like companies like Gilco and uh,
Yes.
Phil with his company, and just seeing those videos is like it's almost like being there in person or better. It's so crisp and clear. And then you go look in the mirror and you go, I don't look like that. And it's the same thing I used to think when I was opening a magazine and I would see Jay Cutler and be like, I don't look like that.
Yeah, it is so crazy too. Cause like I love that we have like the GoCo videos, the Phil, the PCS videos, but it is so different. I mean, and I know you can attest to this, Paul. Like you see those girls on stage, you watch those videos, and they look healthy, like I don't say big as in like masculine, but the muscles look big, they look pretty normal, but you see them in person and you see them off stage. And for bikini, I mean, they're very tiny humans. I know, like it's
Yeah.
always interesting going to like the Olympia every year and going to like the athlete meet and greet and meeting these athletes that are days out from stepping on stage at the Bikini Olympia, and I'm like, wow, okay, they're actually really small, right? So it's like when you see them on stage, I think there's a lot to be said for it kind of quote unquote adds weight to the frame. So it can be a little deceiving if you're just, looking at these videos or looking at competitors through a screen. Like the depth perception, just they look so different there.
It is an illusion,
Yeah.
especially women, because women have like tinier joints and tinier, and so you have a little bit of muscle and you just look so dense. And then you go to meet the Olympians and all the girls have their tracksuits on, which are all size 0, by the way. They're all so tiny in those suits. Their faces are sucked in, and you're like, you know how many times I've had people meet Daraja and be like, you're Daraja? And they like look her up and down like, where is all that muscle that like you're known for? Like she's very deceptive in person. And then, comes off the tracksuit, hits a front pose, and you're like, whoa. So there is an element of, but I still think if you look back to the competitors 10 years ago, um, I think it'll be interesting to see just how that perception changes the sport when these first competitors hit the stage. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
agreed. And I'm even more so like I'm really curious for 2026 because I don't think we mentioned it yet, but they're not going to do any pro shows for this division this year, but in 2026 they will be. So that'll be interesting to see too, like the pro division or the pro shows for this division.
Yeah, it'll definitely come down to, so I don't know how soon they're going to have it, but if they have it at the Arnold, the problem is you won't be able to qualify for the Arnold, which is now a show, because I have girls competing this weekend that are going to go to the Arnold for the bikini. So if they allow it at the Arnold, which is 10 weeks away, that would be the first eyes. The next national show would be Junior USA's. Are they going to have it there?
That's a
Um,
good question. That is a good question. I'm not sure about that because they kind of just said it's going to be, from what I saw on Tyler's recap, he just said it's going to take place at all NPC shows in 2025. So that's a
yeah, I don't
great.
know if that includes national shows. He did say all NPC and NPC worldwide, which some of the NPC worldwide shows are pro qualifiers. I believe technically the Amateur Olympia might be an NPC worldwide show. Um, so yeah, I don't know. That's yet to come. I'm sure his inbox is full right now.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine how many messages he has. I'm sure he's putting
I
just.
actually thought about messaging him and being like, "Hey, how would you feel about, coming on a podcast or doing a clip?" And I thought, you know what? There's no way. That man has gotten 14,000 messages from
Oh,
every competitor that he's friends with that's retired. I just can't even imagine right now.
yeah. I had to laugh. I saw your little message on Instagram, Paul, like I forget what the feature's called, but where you said something like, "Yes, I've seen Tyler's video."
Oh, they just added that. It's like a note. It's like
They've had that
Instagram
for a
notes.
they've had that for a long time.
Oh, well, I just updated my app. That tells you how long. I've had it for like a week.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I saw that you posted that. I laughed. I've never seen you post like a note there, but I had to laugh
I
at your
don't think I might have been the first note I ever posted. And I literally just was getting ding, ding, ding. My DMs were like, I mean, text messages, like, yeah, it was pretty wild there for a minute. So yeah, I think I'm trying to think if there's any other thing. The only other thing that came to my mind when I heard this was, okay, so if the bikini division is the entry level division for women and it's gotten a little bit too much, that it's
Mhm.
drawn attention in a way where maybe people are a little bit, they're not going to enter the sport because they're worried about it. What about men's physique being the entry level division for men? Because those dudes, yikes. I mean, in a good way. Talk about muscle. So look at 10 years ago who was doing the Olympia, Mr. Steve Cook. And that's a look that all of us guys can look at and go, damn, he looks awesome. And yet it's attainable.
That's a great point. Yeah. And like that also brings up another question. I had somebody ask me, it was John Cruz in the bodybuilding world about like with this new division for females, do I think that there's like will women's physique or women's bodybuilding or fitness like what's going to happen to these divisions because we've already seen like really low numbers for these divisions or those divisions which rightfully so they're a lot harder to obtain that criteria so it'll kind of be interesting to see like if anything ends up happening to them over
I
time.
think this makes 7 divisions for women. Let's go through them. Fit model, bikini, figure, wellness, um,
Fitness.
women's physique, fitness, and bodybuilding. That's 7 divisions. Um, yeah, that's probably a little. I mean, honestly, like the figure and the women's physique are, obviously in figure you're wearing heels, you're doing quarter turns. Women's physique, it's closer to bodybuilding, but you know, the muscularity required to be successful in figure is pretty significant.
Yeah,
So, um, yeah, it'll be curious.
I know. I feel like it'll just be this year. I feel like it'll be kind of a, I don't know. This year it's just it'll get started with this new division and we'll kind of see how it goes. And I really feel like it'll kind of sink in 2026 though with more of a definite standard. And I think it'll take off a lot more then. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it's exciting.
Yeah, anytime we add more inclusivity into the bodybuilding world, I know everyone initially goes, "Oh man, I got some messages. I don't want to be at shows longer." Listen, nobody's at shows longer than a coach.
No, and
It's not a problem.
I feel like the MPC has probably already thought about that too, and is probably going to have ways to like speed it up. I mean, I think that's partly why for this new division, like they're not doing routines from what I interpret. It's
That
literally,
as well as no crossovers. So you're
yeah,
not you're not doubling the size of the classes in both divisions. You're doing one or the other. Um, yeah, it's immediately going to be trying to think of the first show of the year that'll have it. I mean, there's a show in Detroit right after the Arnold. I wonder if the Arnold is going to have it. That's going to be because you don't have time to qualify for it. So would they just make it an open show? And if so, are they going to give out a pro card because they give out 2 bikini pro cards?
right. Yeah, it'll be interesting, but I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I kind of wish. Tell me what you think. I kind of wish they would have called it Classic Bikini.
Oh my gosh, I wish that too. That would make a lot of sense too, because it is kind of, it's like a blast from the past, history repeating itself. It's like old bikini back in 2015. Yeah, that would make sense. Classic
Well, like you
bikini.
think of the classic physique division and what it was meant to do, it was at a time when bodybuilders were getting their proportions were getting kind of out of hand, their stomachs were getting really big. And so they created this division called classic physique where they put weight caps on the men and they focused more on streamlined. You think of like the Frank Zanes, the Bob Paris's, the physiques where the guys obviously tons of muscle, but the emphasis was on symmetry and tight cores and that kind of a thing. And so with this division, fit model, I'm sure they ran through all possibilities. I'm sure classic bikini was thrown around, but you know, when I thought fit model, I thought, man, it would have been cool to be classic bikini, but that one might have made it even more confusing.
Yeah, no, but like I like that name, but yeah, I'm sure there was some logic behind why they named it what they did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
fit model, I think it's just gonna grab more mainstream titles. Like to be an IFBB Fit Model Pro, that's a pretty cool title.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest, the amount of times I've had to explain to like husbands, moms, dads that your daughter is competing or your wife is competing in the bikini division, you think of like wet t-shirt contests or a bikini contest. Like that's what comes to mind, at least when the division started. I'm so close to it, I don't think like that anymore. But when people bring that, I go, yeah, I get it. That's what it. So
Yeah.
someone tells their mom like, oh, mom, I'm competing in a bikini competition. Excuse me? You know,
Right, right. No, actually, right before we started this podcast, I had a former client of mine reach out and she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy about this new division. Like, my husband's really happy about it. I think, like, even just the bottom coverage alone, like, being a lot more than what we see on standard bikini, I think
yeah.
that's going to ease a lot of people's minds. Like, you and I, like, we don't look at it in a weird way anymore. But it's, for some people, wearing that tiny little bottom is a little scary and just,
Well, and
they don't want to.
there's been times, I mean, I have a very vivid memory of first call outs at the Olympia a couple of years, and a couple of them faced the back, and there was one in particular I was like, that is straight up a string. Like there is no material there. It is a tee and a string. I was like,
Yep.
wow.
I have
So,
a yeah, I have a pretty bad memory of gosh, I think it was a couple years ago at the Tampa Pro. Unfortunately, they took the pictures down, so nobody can go and search
oh
them out.
yeah,
You know what I'm talking about? Yep.
yes,
Yep.
yeah.
Of
There was
the
the
competitors.
back pose that shocked the world.
Yes. Thank goodness they took those pictures down, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was bad.
So I think, yeah, I think this is, and telling, and going to compete in fit model probably has a nice ring to it. I think, yeah, it's going to be very interesting. So I think, I don't know, is there anything else we need to cover? Because we don't have a lot of information, right? Like,
Yeah, we don't. And we'll keep you guys updated as we find out more, but I would recommend following Tyler Manion. Also, I know Becky Clausen, so like Fit Pro Becky on Instagram. She created a highlight reel yesterday for this. So I would follow both of them because obviously they're good people to follow who are gonna put out the information as more of it comes out.
well, you've got the NPC Women's Workshop happening in Orlando in January. You've also got, I know once the year is over, they get all the judges together in Pittsburgh and and they talk about these things, and so there'll be more information coming out about it. Um, I think the way that information is now disseminated in the NPC and the IFBB is it's very well done. Like they get the criteria set. You already see the rules are very well defined.
Mhm.
And so the criteria is set. And I think that's what's going to be encouraging for like when this division hits the stage, there's not going to be any questions about criteria. There may be obviously some questions with like, well, why did this person win over this one? That's bodybuilding. There's always going to be personal preference in there. Um, I think maybe, because beauty is a factor of pro bikini, but there are a lot of pro bikini competitors that you wouldn't consider like glamorous that do well. I think this division's probably going to lean a little more towards that glamour side, right? Because
I
yeah,
would agree. I could definitely see that. And you bring up a good point. I didn't think about the women's workshop because I'll be there well, I guess it's like a month from now. So I will be curious to learn a little bit more about this division there because I'm sure Sandy will have a whole portion of the event talking about this.
it will be all the Twitter, all the
Yeah.
buzz. So yeah, I think just learning what they want as quickly as possible as coaches. I'll be excited. I consider myself a very competitive coach. I like to be competitive. And so right out of the gate, you know me, Lexie, I'm going to be like, hey, let's go win some shows. Let's go see what this is all about. Let's go get a pro card. If they start doing the Olympia with it, let's do that, like the whole thing. Um, and it has the name model in it, fit model. So, I think that's going to, tell you a little bit about how it's going to be scored.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Looking forward to it.
all right. Anything else thing you can think of?
I don't think so, but I hope we get like listeners chime in on YouTube, comment below tell us what you guys
Yeah.
think about this. I
Do you
want to,
like it? Do you not like it? Tell us why. Because we can do a follow-up podcast, and I can also reach out to, the NPC and the IFBB. Guess where I'll be this weekend? At a show. Guess what's going to be probably the hottest topic at that show? Steve
right.
Weinberger's judging. David Herskovitz is judging. So these are like Olympia judges, pro judges. Uh, I'm sure they're going to have a sheet for answering all their questions.
Oh, I'm sure they're going to be flooded. I can only imagine poor Tyler right now. Yeah, I'm sure he is just like, if I were him, I would put my phone away. I'm sure his
He
phone.
does a pretty good job, I think, keeping separate.
Yeah.
And I never ever message him, never. Even though I could, I just never like it. It's got to be something pretty extreme. I really try to give judges their space. So,
For sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool. All right.
Cool. All right. Well, hope
All
you
right, guys. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this emergency episode of the Pro Physique Code.
yes, enjoy and leave a comment below.
And have a Merry Christmas.